Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening everyone. So today is Friday the 6th of November 2020, and this is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. So as usual, I'm here with you tonight. Today, especially, I have a guest, Thanh Thitadhammo. So he was ordained about 3 months ago, and being a monk for 3 months, and working and studying and meditating and doing all sort of things. So before I go on and asking questions or just a discussion on different topics, particularly we will be focusing on the paticcasamuppada, and I have asked him to give his insights and his understandings. So I would invite him to give a short introduction about himself and other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. I am Ajahn Thitadhammo, or Lumpi Kal. I was ordained, like Ajahn said, just a few months ago, to experience what monastic life would be like, and I found it to my liking, which would have been quite a big surprise for me if I went back in time a year ago wearing my robes and told myself, you're a monk next year, like, just get out of here. But it is what it is. I found it quite an enjoyable and fulfilling experience. The most important thing I've done in my life. I'm really enjoying practicing and learning the Dhamma. I get to do what I've always done, which is think about stuff and look at stuff, investigate things, without having to worry about a bank account, because I'm cancelling it now. Without having to worry about getting a job, because I have a job which pays me in food and shelter and things to do and knowledge, which is what you need from any job, really. And not having to worry about looking after a partner or looking for a partner or looking for sex, which takes up a lot of time. So there's a lot of freedom in this life, which I'm quite enjoying, and I've gained faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. So I'm part of it now. So yeah, I've decided to stay with it, stick with it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Thanh Thitadhammo, or Lumpi Kal. His name is his nickname is Kal.
Yeah, it's my lay name.
Yeah.
The Sri Lankan convention, that's very improper, but Thais seem to be fine with it, so okay.
Yeah, so that's why I invited him to share. Before going into that, there are a few things that I just wanted to say that this center in Aberdeen, we live here at the moment. We are 3 monks. That's me and Ajahn Pira, and then Thanh Kal at the center. And during this lockdown time, there have been so much changes and so much flexibility with the even offering food, and even, as you see, lots of talks and lots of meditations and the teachings are going on. And meanwhile, Thanh Kal also, or Thanh Thitadhammo, also learning a lot too. And particularly this week, it's been almost 2 weeks that I have been talking on dependent origination, which is the paticcasamuppada. So I, rather than just me giving you, my thoughts, and probably you're bored of me talking every day. So I've invited Thanh Thitadhammo to speak on that or share something. Okay, go on.
This morning when Ajahn asked me, I told him, well, I hope I don't mislead anyone because I know so little. So if you are expecting me to talk about the 12 links, you're going to be very disappointed because I don't remember all of it. But there is one verse I found in my studies that I found so amazing, and one that I think epitomizes the importance of the paticcasamuppada. And maybe you talked about it earlier. It was when Upatissa and Kolita, which were the lay names of Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana, the greatest arahants and the two foremost disciples of the Buddha, they went to a hilltop party, and it must have been a pretty good party because they were disgusted by it at the end. So they were so disillusioned by all this vanity, all this indulgence, and they must have been pretty hungover as well in the morning, and they just said, okay, I'm done with it now. I'm gonna go and try and search for the truth. And that is a feeling that I've shared at times as well, but I wasn't as lucky as them to be born in the Buddha's time. But here I am. And anyway, they ran into an inspiring figure in Venerable Assaji, who was one of the Buddha's first disciples, right? He was one of the five.
One of the five, yeah. One of the 5 disciples and one of the junior Assaji.
And so they went to Assaji because they were so impressed by his demeanor and asked him, who is your master, and teach me about his teaching. I'm not sure the exact conversation, but Venerable Assaji, being the humble monk that he is, he said, I don't know very much because I'm only very recently ordained. But Upatissa said, okay, tell me what little you know and I can understand in detail what you say in brief. So Venerable Assaji said this verse, Ye dhamma hetu pabbhava te samhetum tatagato vaha te sancha yo nirodho evam vadi mahasamano. So here, Ye dhamma hetu pabbhava means all phenomena, all dhammas or phenomena, things that have a cause, tesam hetum tathagato vaha, their cause the Tathagata has explained or shown, tesancha yo nirodho, and their cessation, evam vadi mahasamano, so says the great recluse. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the fascinating thing about this is, as soon as when Upatissa heard the first 2 lines, he became a Sotapatti. And now it's just such a fascinating thing for me. So when I was reading on it, the venerable monk who wrote the paper explained that Ye Dhamma Hetu Pabbhava, here, the Hetu is, so Venerable Assaji, he realized straight away that all things have a condition. So here, Hetu Pabbhava, Hetu, or the cause, it's commonly understood to be avidya, but here Hetu means the law of conditionality itself, the paticcasamuppada itself. And the Venerable Assaji didn't have to explain the entire paticcasamuppada to Upatissa, just the fact that there is a conditional state of being, that there is a law of conditionality, that all things have a condition, have a cause. And Venerable Assaji, then Upatissa must have been so smart, because he realized straight away that, everything has a cause, has a condition. So before the Buddha came along, the weave of the self, including the self, he must have realized the self itself has a condition, because that's why he became a Sotapatti, because he realized anatta. But anyway, before the Buddha came along, the world believed in the self as this elemental, foundational, immutable, unatomizable sort of solid, concrete thing. But the Buddha came along and shattered that weave by showing that the self itself has a condition. that it is now you're on shaky ground, because there's no foundation, because everything has a cause and a condition going back straight to avidya. But let's forget about avidya here. He must have realized straight away, oh, this thing that I've been clinging on to for so long, like the self and all this view of reality and universe itself is conditioned. So he reached Sotapatti, and that I found wonderful. And but Kolita, he needed to hear all three. He had to hear Te Sancha Yonirodo. So he realized. So Upatissa must have realized straight away, because these things have a cause, they must have a cessation as well. He realized Yam Kinchi Samudaya Dhammam Sabbam Tam Nirodha Dhammam. All things that have a cause that arises has to cease by their very nature. So all things that have a beginning have an end. So Upatissa must have realized, oh, so the self, everything, they all must cease. All dhammas must cease. And that's how we gain Sotapatti. But Kolita, his friend, had to hear that the Tathagata also described the cessation of all these things.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful, and there's this short stanza and ability to comprehend completely, and then become a Sotapanna. And we have heard so many times, we're reading so much, and it's still not Sotapanna.
No. If only, but it is.
Yeah. So here again, it is similar that when the first disciple or the first monk in Buddhism, the Venerable Kandanya, he also heard the similar way. So that is also all conditioned dhammas that arises subject to cease, and that was the teaching that made him realize and become a Sotapanna, and which is similar to the Kandanya too. He also realized in that way, and that's how Moggallana was also, Kolita was also become a Sotapanna. Now, in your experience, tell us about this paticcasamuppada and how we can apply.
Well,
it's a very deep, very difficult subject. But again, from what you have heard, what you have read,
it's not something I've read, but like when it comes to paticcasamuppada, the most important thing for a meditator, I think, is to look at it as the birth of every single moment or every single thought and action and feeling that we have is paticcasamuppada. The basis is avidya. So that is something that we need to realize is like avidya. What is avidya? Is like I've always thought of avidya as a lack of information, so a lack of data. So let's say we are making a conclusion that we call reality, that we call the self, that we call what we see, what we hear, based on an incomplete set of data. So our ears cannot hear all the frequencies in the universe. Our eyes cannot see all the visible light, the whole light spectrum. And we make instruments, but they can't do everything either. And now scientists are, not now, but about 100 years ago, and even now they're puzzled by it. There's this talk of antimatter and dark matter and the complete opposite of matter. Every single elemental particle has the exact opposite of it. And these are things we simply cannot even comprehend, But we can't see these things. And the universe itself is mostly emptiness, mostly nothingness. Because what we call matter is such a small percentage of this universe. It's mostly empty space. But despite all this, despite the fact that we can't see most of it, we base our conclusions on this and call it reality. And this is what I think is avidya. It's just an incomplete set of data, and anyone can understand why it's such a terrible idea to base your entire existence and reality and conclusions on ignorance, on something you do not know. But I believe that an arahant can obtain all this information required to make a conclusive statement on anything, all things. And as a meditator, what we are doing, the most boring way we can put meditation is a data gathering exercise. It's purely scientific. So in science, it's the funny thing is, like, there is no other philosophy or worldview that allows for an investigation at this level, because even scientific philosophy says that all experiments must be repeatable for them to be accepted, and this is a really good philosophy in that way. But the fact is that most papers that are written, we cannot replicate this experiment because we haven't got million pound labs. But to understand the nature of reality through meditation, you don't need $1 million lab. You just need this. And you could do it anywhere you want at any time. You just need your breath. You just need to exist.
You don't have to spend any money to
in
the lab.
Totally free. In fact, you
just need to sit and do it.
Yeah, sit and do it. And if you want, you could put on these robes and you don't even need to look for food. People give you food so you could do it.
Okay, yeah. So this is we are talking about the paticcasamuppada, or dependent origination, and which I have been talking on this topic for almost 2 weeks, and today Thanh Thitadhammo is sharing his understanding on that. So yeah, anything you want to say? Paticcasamuppada, any particular thing that really struck you?
What really struck me is also the just the fact that I cannot memorize the whole thing. So I'm patiently waiting, like Ajahn said, for it to fall in place through the practice of meditation.
This is true, because in the past, when I was studying, I tried to remember and memorize it so much, and in exams I did best too. But after finished exam, I forgot all, and I just returned back to the book. So the cycle of this paticcasamuppada, I even confused with this remembering 12 links, and in independent origination there are 12 links. And which again I forgot over the time of after finished exam. And later on, as meditation developed and progressed, all this 12 links fall into an ability to basically understand it rather than memorizing it. So with this, as you practice, you don't have to memorize the Dhammas. It just falls in. And whereas now when you are not practicing and when you're studying alone, you can memorize it, but you cannot experience it. Whereas when you're practicing meditation, you're experiencing those Dhammas one after another, and it's become a part of your practice and a part of your daily routine. And with this, you don't have to remember it. It's just there. And as you practice, then it just falls in. And everything just links one another. And that's the beauty what I found in Buddha's teachings, that doesn't matter where you start. The web of these teachings, of 45 years of Buddha's teachings, which categorized into 84,000 of principles, just falls into that net and links one after another, and it's entirely up to you how far you want to link, entirely up to you how far you understand. And that's the reason why the more you practice, and you will see, oh, this is there, oh, this is there, oh, this is that, oh, this is that, like that. It's like a bottomless, it just goes on and on and on.
Amazing.
And you don't have to remember it. It just comes one after another. So that's why as a practice is really important. So this is a dependent origination that we are talking about. And today, actually, when I was reading about Halloween and Guy Fawkes Day and All Saints Day, and I think I did mention about this last week in Halloween's day, that actually the Halloween day is also a day of a celebration from moving from one time zone to another time zone, or basically the harvest and end of the summer and turning to the new year, darkness. Basically it's called a witch new year, and that's basically a part of the retreat that people this is spiritual journey that one will take on. And according to paganism, this is Halloween actually a part of a Scottish Irish tradition, an ancient tradition that practiced as a form of a transition from one time zone to another. And also this is what I found quite interesting, that in Buddhism we have called a Pavarana, the day when we believe that the Buddha descended from Tavatimsa, to Sita heaven, after giving teachings to his mother, came down to the earth, and during this time the three worlds could see one another. So basically it's become a thin line that one of another can connect. People can see hell or the heavens, and people similarly beings in the heavens could see the humans and the spirits. And when I read the paganism, I found that this time, the Halloween particularly time, is the time that thinnest time that one can see one another. And as a result of that, people would put the sweets outside their houses, simply to divert the mischievous spirits. And this tradition, when I looked at it in Nepal, in Thailand, there are similar traditions too. They also set up a fire and pray with the fire, and in Sri Lanka as well.
Oh, they got a crazy one.
The
guy wears a devil mask.
And then in Thailand also, this is a time called Loi Krathong. They also set a fire, and then it says thank you to the river after the harvest time. And this fire thing, and when I looked at it, according to the paganism, and this becomes about on the 1st of November or on the 6th of November. And as the Christianity came and just wanted to adopt or just what is called the absorb and then take control of people by removing old tradition but making it a new form, adaptation. And that's how it's introduced. And later on, King James the First, when the Guy Fawkes burned the palace, at that time again, in a later year, King wanted to celebrate this by saying that thanks to the God to save the nation and the king, sort of like that. And that's how, again, when I was talking to one of the scholars of paganism, and he said that it's just a diversion, from the fire that light to connect to the ancestors. And now it's a Guy Fawkes has become a part of that tradition too. When I looked at this, it's like a perfect time to discuss about the dependent origination, that how we are so connected with our ancestor, and saying thank you, and also saying thank you to the nature, that how much we are related to the nature.
Very interesting.
So we are very different. Scotland is very different country compared to Nepal or Thailand or Sri Lanka, but the tradition is like quite similar. And in Nepal it's a new year, and then new year, the celebration is like after harvest, summer ends, now new year starts, the winter new year. It starts, which is quite similar. And same with in Thailand, called a Loi Krathong. Harvest ends, now celebrate and say thank you And that's so connected. And with this, I always think that we all humans are same. We have one source we came from, but only we different in different places as we revolved.
What you're saying, it reminds me of this Carl Jung, his idea of a collective conscious. Like there are certain themes in our psychology and in the way in our societies that are shared across all humanity. So this simple idea, like you said, the strange fascination we have with the other side and these rituals and these dreams,
so it's quite a similar that how we are connected. So this gives me an impression that we are from same source. That's why we have preserved these old tradition in different forms, and the sense of a connection with the ancestors. And so that's why there is a fire to connect with our ancestors, and saying thank you to our ancestor. So this is again just simply a talk about how we are related and how much we are interdependent. In a way, it's a form of we are because of the past, and we, particularly as you said, this time of this year will be in history, and everybody is gonna talk about it.
It's insane, I can't wait for it to end, but I'm worried about what would happen next year. So.
So that's why the whole thing is conditioned, and everything is conditioned, aroused. And along the way, this condition changes. And although the condition changes, as Thanh Thitadhammo said at the beginning, the hetu, the nature of this causality will still remain the same. Conventionally, we may change. As I said, it was probably a same source, but the tradition of a practice, different sources and different places, it revolved as it goes. But the hetu, the main cause, remains the same. And that's with us too. We may develop in a modern world in different forms. We have a beautiful houses, and we have a heating systems, and we have a good clothings. In the past, they didn't have it. But again, we think that we are developed, but we still are same. We have greed, hatred, and delusion are all same.
And we still have our own sources of suffering.
Yes.
It's so funny for me. It's like someone without an arm, they won't cry about a pinprick in their finger, but if they get a paper cut, most people can't imagine a worse pain than that. In a similar way, because I grew up in a developed country. I was born in a developing country, and I came here when I was about 12 years old. So life there and here, it's like this place is like a heaven. But am I really happier than I was over there? The answer would be no. Even though I had less there, even though I have things here, I had things here that I could only dream of when I was a child. I think I was far happier back then.
So it's unfortunately we have to end here. It's 7 o'clock.
Okay.
We will come back again in a couple of days later. Okay. So thank you everyone, and particularly thank you Thanh Thitadhammo for coming and sharing his insight on a dependent origination, and thank you everyone for listening. And in a few moments time we're going to have evening chanting and guided meditation. You're most welcome to join with us. Until then, thank you and good night. See you shortly. Sadhu.